So I just got out of the newest horror movie, Weapons, directed by Zach Kreger, and man, I gotta say, I don't know how to feel about this movie.
Those kids walked out of those homes. No one pulled them out. No one forced them.
So Weapons is all about these children who go missing at 2:17 a.m. If you've seen the trailers, you've seen that that's what it is. And I gotta say, the trailers don't spoil anything about this movie. That whole sequence of the kids going missing early in the morning and never coming back is the first 3 minutes of the movie. And then from there on, you don't really see anything you see from the trailers. But man, I gotta say, this movie, I really did enjoy it. And there were at times during the movie where I wasn't enjoying it. And I hate it because this movie is getting really good reviews. But at times, I just didn't enjoy it that much. But overall, I really did like it. There were a few just downtimes. So, the movie is I love the way the story is told in this movie. As the mystery is unfolding of who took these kids, did the kids go missing, where did they go, what is all this, what is going down, you're getting the story told from a perspective of like 5 different characters, right? So you have Julia Gardner's character, you have Josh Brolin's character, and you have a few other characters who the story is getting told from. And I really enjoy the way the horror in this movie worked and the tension in it. So you would start from one person's perspective, and it would be, not much horror is going on. They're untelling the story, but as their story went on, it kept getting creepier and creepier and scarier and scarier. And as soon as it got to this climax of it's just now getting really scary, it switches to the next person's perspective, and they all culminate into this point. So I really did enjoy the way the story was told and how it was forming, and everyone's perspective was building up and everyone's story got creepier and creepier. But there were times in the story where there's a story, part of the character story in it, there's a cop, and then there's this other guy, and their story is kind of a different spot than Justine, Julia Gardner's character, and Archer, Josh Brolin's character. They're kind of investigating this mystery, and their stories cross paths at one point, and you get to see it from their point of perspective. But with the cop and this other character, they kind of weren't investigating the story. They just kind of stumbled upon the mystery, and even some parts in their stories, there was kind of some down. I feel like you could have combined it, maybe integrated them into the story a little bit. But that's really my nitpick of the movie, and I liked the way it ended. It had I don't want to spoil it, so you'll just have to watch it. But I did like the way it ended, the story unfolding. And basically the premise of the movie is Justine, Julia Gardner's character. Her class is all the kids that went missing. There's about 18 of them. Only one of them is left. And everyone thinks it's her. They're ridiculing her. They're like, hey, she needs to go to jail. She knows something about what's going on, but she has no idea what's going on. And they're calling her a witch. They're doing all these terrible things, and they're thinking that she's the one behind it, which rightfully so, it makes sense. But as she begins investigating, as these other characters investigate, this mystery unfolds. And as a horror movie, man, the horror in this movie was done really good. When it was getting scary, the jump scares in this movie were not cheesy. They weren't. I kind of didn't expect them. It would kind of happen at a point where I'm like, okay, there's a jump scare about to happen here. But it kind of, with the timing of it, it wasn't when I expected it. It'd be like right after when I expected it would happen. And a few of them really did get me. But no, the horror in this movie was really well paced. I liked that at the end of everyone's story, it gradually just got creepier and scarier. And then when it swapped to the next person, that's when your downtime was to kind of reset. And then as it ramps back up to this creepiness factor, that's kind of when it entails. Overall, I gotta say, man, if you like horror movies, I think this is one you should go see. It is a slow burn, but it's not a slow burn at the same time. It's a slow burn, and as the mystery is solved, it just takes a while for the payoff. But in between each person's story, it's ramping up, and they all meet at the third act at the end. So in that sense, it wasn't a slow burn because you were getting these tense, scary moments as the story was unfolding. It would just kind of reset as it goes to the next person. And man, this movie, it was unsettling. It's creepy. If you enjoy horror movies, I think you should see this movie. I think you would think it's very creepy. I think you're either going to really like this movie. The way you're going to come out of this movie is you're going to love it, hate it, or have no idea what the heck is going on. Like, you're just going to be like, what did I just watch? But overall, it was scary. It was a nice slow burn. I really do enjoy slow burn horror movies. There were just some downtime in the movie where I was like, I think this fat could have been shaved off. It was at the points where I was like, all right, I don't want to see this person's story. And I guess when you're telling a story from multiple different characters, that's kind of a problem you run into. Is I really might enjoy one character's story, and just as it's getting good, I swap to somebody else. And I might like this person, but then I get to this person, I'm like, I'm not liking this story right here. These 20, 30 minutes I'm having to watch of this person, I'm just kind of like, I don't want to watch it. And I didn't like some stories as much. But as it culminated, it got into the third act where the last 20 minutes of this movie are just a roller coaster. It's creepy. I think I would give this movie, give it a 7.5 out of 10. As I've kind of sat on it for a minute and thought about it, I've enjoyed it more than my initial reaction walking out, because I was kind of just like, what just happened? But I think I would give it about a 7.5. So if you've seen it, let me know what you thought. If not, if you don't like horror movies, if you are creeped out, I don't go see this movie. Don't go watch. If you don't like horror movies, don't go watch it. But if you enjoy horror movies, I think you would like this movie. Great performances, really good scares, creepy. The story is weird. Overall, 7.5 out of 10. Let me know what you think. And real quick, I'm going to get into spoilers. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers, go ahead and click away. But in 3, 2, 1.
Are you watching?
So like I said, the beginning of this movie, it all unfolds within what you see in the trailers of these kids disappearing. This unfolds in the first 3 minutes of the movie. Like, the trailers did such a good job of letting you not knowing anything about this movie other than some children are missing. Even with the title of the movie, Weapons, I'm like, you don't really know how that ties in until almost the third act of the movie. But so the narration of the movie, the very beginning, a girl is kind of telling you everything that happened at the beginning of the movie. She's kind of saying all these kids disappeared. The girl's narrating up to the point where they had the school meeting about what happened. And I did not like the intro. I wish the intro would have just been a little creepier. Like, maybe you're seeing perspective of all these kids waking up in their sleep and just barging out of the house with this eerie feeling instead of just some little child narrating what's happening. But overall, I didn't hate it, but I just thought there was a missed opportunity to at least have this creepiness factor turned up right at the get-go to where you can kind of get people in their seats. But so you get to that point, all these children go missing, they run into the darkness. A lot of the families have this on their Ring cameras, their house cameras. And so that unfolds. They all are, and from the first story perspective you get is the teacher of this class, Justine. And she has a troubled past. She's an alcoholic. She got fired from her previous school. But everyone thinks it's her, and rightfully so. It's only her classroom that went missing. And only one kid was left, this kid, Alex. So, she's down in the dumps. Everyone's kind of after her. And as her story unfolds, she is like, I got to figure out what's going on. I need to talk to my one student left, Alex. So the principal, who is Benedict Wong, who plays Wong in the MCU, which is funny, actually, now that I think about it. There's the Silver Surfer, Thanos, and Wong all in the same movie. So a lot of MCU characters. But so she follows Alex home. And what she notices when she follows him home is there's newspaper all over the windows. The house is like boarded up. She's like, something's going on. This doesn't seem right. She's ringing the doorbell. Nobody's answering. And she kind of has a little glimpse through the newspaper, and she can see two people kind of sitting on a couch. And it's kind of this jump scare. It was really well timed. So she knows something's up. And I don't know how this plays in, but throughout her story, she goes into this dream sequence. where she's having nightmares about what's happening. And man, these things are freaky. The jump scares in them were good, and they're really tense. But her character and Josh Brolin's character Archer have both of these weird dream sequences, but I don't think anyone else in the movie has them. So I don't know how they tie in. I don't know what they mean. I don't know why only they had it, unless it was just them having nightmares about it. But they did see glimpses of what's going to end up happening. And spoiler of this movie, just real quick as I tell her story, there's a witch behind all of it. So them putting witch on her car was not far behind what the actual thing of the movie is. And I didn't think that's where that movie was going. I didn't think it was going to be a witch doing all this. I thought there was going to be some paranormal weird things going on. But anyways, so she ends up camping outside of the house to see what's going on, and she falls asleep in the middle of the night, and there's this really creepy scene where somebody comes out of the house walking really weird. They kind of get into her car while she's asleep. She never wakes up, and they just cut off her hair. So when that happened, that's the end of her story you get until it comes back to this moment. And man, you're like, why'd they just cut her hair? What's happening? What's going on? You haven't unfolded that there's a witch yet. And then it cuts to Archer's story, where he's mad at this teacher. He thinks it's her. He's the one who it's hinted at the movie and shown that he's the one who puts a witch on her car with this red paint he accidentally bought. But it unfolds in his story, and he goes into this weird dream sequence too while trying to figure out everything. And when I was watching the movie, I was so confused in his dream sequence because he's chasing after his kid in the dream sequence, and he stumbles back upon his house, and he looks up in the sky, and there's a floating AR-15 with 217 on it. Now, unless the message behind this and what that means, I just completely missed one overhead. If you know what that's talking about, let me know. But I was like, why is there a gigantic AR-15 floating in the air with 217? I get 217s a time they go missing, but is he former military? I didn't get it. I was very confused. And so he has a dream sequence. Basically, what ends up happening is he's constantly watching his son, I think his name was William, run out of the house. And he noticed he's running in a weird way in a direct straight line. And so he goes around asking neighbors for their footage. And he notices that their kids are doing the exact same thing. They're running the same way, running in a direct straight line. So he actually gets a map of the neighborhood and kind of crosses them all together and sees they converge at this one point. He doesn't know whose house it is. And he's like, something's just going on with this convergence point. And so that's pretty much the end of where his ends. And then you get to the part I don't like. It gets to the part of the cop, Paul, and there's this meth head, Terry, I think is his name. It gets to the point of their story converging. And I got to say, this is probably my least favorite part of the movie is I don't like Paul's story. Paul doesn't have any creepiness at all in his story from what I recall. And so I just didn't enjoy his that much. I thought his was kind of... I feel like you could have combined his and the crackhead. I keep calling him a crackhead. He was just a druggie. But I feel like you could have combined their stories and just told it from one point of view. I can't remember the character's name who was the drug addict, but his did having some creepiness at the end. His makes sense. I really think you could have just told it from his perspective and not Paul's. Paul's was probably the most, I just didn't like his. I felt like I had the most downtime. I was like, hey, I want to kind of get back into it. But both of them just stumble upon the mystery. They just end up getting to the house. Basically, the meth head, he does something illegal. Paul arrests him. He kind of lets him go because they get in a tussle and he gets caught on camera doing something he shouldn't have done. I'm just trying to skim past it. But he gets to the point where the meth head guy just ends up seeing a $50,000 reward for the kids gone missing. And prior to that, he actually robbed their house. He just stumbled into that house. He robbed it. And he noticed, hey, there's adults in here who aren't doing anything. They're sitting here weird. Like what Justine saw when she looked through the window. She just saw two people just sitting there not moving. He saw the same thing. And he starts hearing these noises. So he robs the house. Sorry, my talk is saying something. But so he robs the house. And he stumbles upon the basement and he sees all the kids. And so He just leaves, pawns it off. He sees his $50,000 reward. And he's like, I'm going to go tell the cops. But little did he know the cop, Paul, from earlier said, hey, I don't ever want to see you around here again. And he's having a bad day. So he ends up getting another tussle with this cop, Paul. And he's like, hey, man, I know where the kids are at. He doesn't believe him. He's like, I'm telling you, dude, I know where the kids are at. And so they end up going to, he's like, hey, they're at this house. They go there. He's stuck in the back of the cop car because he's kind of arrested. So Paul goes in there and he just never comes out. It ends up being really late at night. He comes back out and he's like violent. He's dragging the meth head guy out of the cop car. And that's what you're going to notice is, and then the next, one of the other stories is the president, Benedict Wong's character. I think his name is Andrew. I can't remember. But so you tell it from his perspective. He's the principal. Basically what happens with him is Justine, after she sees the house being Alex's house, taped up, weird, she calls the principal and says, hey, you need to meet with his parents. Something's not right. So he sets up a call with the parents. And this is the point when you figure out what the story really is. So he sets up a meeting with the parents, and you know what his parents look like at the time. And this weird red-headed lady with red lipstick walks in. And you immediately know this is your antagonist because the kids in all the dream sequences have like this red lipstick around them, this weird hair. You immediately know it's her. So it's this weird lady. She's like, I'm Alex's aunt. His parents are sick. So immediately you know, okay, this person's behind it. Has to be some type of witch thing going on. So the president is like, the principal of the school is like, I really need to be with his parents. Something seems off. Can I come by the house or whatever? Yada, yada, yada. The lady's like, he's like, might have to get child protective services involved. She leaves. It comes in on Saturday. She just knocks on his door and is playing this whole facade of how she's tired and all this stuff. And then they welcome her inside or whatever. And she starts doing witchcraft stuff. She's like, hey, let me have this bowl of water. She cuts herself. She starts doing all this crazy stuff. And that's when you realize like, oh, this is a witch mind controlling people, basically. That's what the whole premise is. The kids were mind controlled. Alex's parents are mind controlled. And it gets to a point where she mind controls the principal of the school and has him just on a rampage. He attacks his partner in the house. She then causes him to go attack Justine. And basically he just sprints across the town. He's running. He never stops trying to get her. And they make him this freaky. Their eyes, they just look freaky when they're being controlled. And basically that's where the movie Weapons comes into the thing is she can turn people into a weapon basically at will with this witchcraft. And just to get to the end of the movie, once they all stumble upon the house in this final act. Well, actually, before I get there, you find out, you do hear the story from Alex's perspective, the one kid that has survived this. And his aunt comes and visits. Apparently she has cancer. And she's like, hey, she's weird. After like the first night she's there, his parents are like in this mind control state where they're just sitting there not moving. He's like, what's going on? And the aunt, her name's Gladys, she's like, listen, I want your parents are fine. You just got to feed them. You can't tell anyone about this. And she basically kind of shows him how the mind control works in this really freaky scene where she makes his parents do some violent stuff to themselves. And she's like, you get it. Don't tell anyone about this, insinuating like, hey, I'm going to hurt your parents if you tell anybody. And so before she even kidnaps the kids, brainwashes the kids, which you'll find out how in a second, it's revealed that she has lived there for, I guess what it seems like, weeks. I don't know how many days go by, but she's been there for weeks with him just taking care of his parents. He's being raised by her. He's trapped in the house with her. So it gets to the point to where she's finally like, hey, I guess her powers sap the life out of other people. And it gets to the point where she's like, hey, I thought just your parents would make me better. I need something from all your classmates, right? So at school, he takes their name tags or something off their cubbies, brings it back, and that's when it gets to the point where she is now casting a spell, controlling all the kids in his class, drawing them to the house. And this is the part of the movie where they all converge. You skip past that, they all converge, and Justine and Archer's character go into the house. There's all these, this is when it gets really tense, where people in the house, the cop Paul and the meth head actually end up getting mind controlled by her, and that's how they stumble in there. They're fighting each other off. They're doing this. And I guess the witch at this time is trying to finalize her spell, get out of it. What's weird is I swear that, so this is me slightly nitpicking, I guess, and maybe I just don't remember correctly. So before Justine and Archer come into the house, Gladys, the aunt, goes into this room. She's like, hey, don't cross this line. There's a salt line on the ground. And she has his parents protecting the door. And she goes in there. I think she goes in there. That's what I'm trying to remember. And I was like, okay. But after Justine and Archer get in there, they're tussling. They're fighting their way through. He stumbles down in the basement and he starts looking for his son because he sees all the kids in the basement. And then he finds Gladys down there and she brainwashes him. But I could have swore she was in the upstairs room. So I don't know when and there was people guarding the door, so I don't know when she got out or what. Maybe I missed it, but it didn't make sense how she got out. But basically, what it all comes down to is there's a suit, and this is the last 20 minutes of the movie. It's super tense. And Alex gets the idea of his parents are actually chasing him because he crossed the line he shouldn't have crossed, and it causes his parents to start attacking him. He gets the idea of, okay, I'm locking myself in this room. I'm going to try to reverse this spell or do something. So he gets the stick she's been using. He kind of like cuts himself and does this thing. Basically what he does is, as the aunt is controlling Archer, she gets control of him. Alex does the spell to where all the kids attack Gladys, the aunt. And this is where there's some weird tonal shift. So all the kids start attacking Gladys, the aunt, and this movie just shifts to a comedy on a beat. It just shifts to a comedy. She starts running out of the house. These kids are like diving through windows, chasing her. And the way they frame it, it just turns into a comedy, and it's kind of cheesy. And you're like, wow, this is the last like 2 minutes of the movie. They just turned it into a comedy. Like the way they're framing it is supposed to be really funny. You're seeing it from other people's perspective, an old lady getting chased by like 18 kids. But man, when they get a hold of her, it flips back and it's just disturbing. You're like, oh my gosh, they're murdering this woman, like children. And basically they kill Gladys, who's the witch in the movie. That's what I'm saying. The plot of this movie, it just, when it unfolds, you're like, what is going on? And the tonal shifts, you're like, what is this? And so that happens and it snaps everyone out. But the weird thing in the movie is they're all in kind of a vegetative state who's mind controlled, which is weird because some people were, some weren't. So Archer's character, and maybe it depends on how long they've been brainwashed, is why they're in that. Because Archer was brainwashed only for like maybe 15 minutes. He snaps out of it. He's just fine. He's normal. He just goes back to it. Alex's parents, who have been brainwashed for, I don't know, let's say a month now, it narrates in the movie that they had to be fed by somebody else, and he goes and lives with his other aunt. So they're still in this vegetative state. And then it mentions that some of the kids, some started talking within a few months, some didn't. Some of them were back to normal and some weren't. So it's like, because they've been controlled for so long, they're kind of in this vegetative state. And that's just when the movie ends. It's just like some kids began to talk soon and the movie cuts. So that's pretty much the premise of the movie. I probably missed a few things, but story's crazy. It gets creepy at points. It has some low time, but overall, I really did enjoy it. I'm curious if there's a deeper meaning of this movie or if it's just a fun witch story movie. But overall, let me know what you think. I enjoyed it. It was crazy, but yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you saw it. All right, bye.